Three, two, one. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole Vibrations podcast. This week we will be continuing with the story of Dr. Stephen Greer. My host Holly and myself are going to walk you through a little bit more of what we did last week. So I think we're going to start off with Holly tonight, and then maybe hopefully move into a decent amount of last year's just basically the National Press Club event that he's doing in like a month from now. We have we're going to have some clips from last year's and kind of discuss them a little bit. But Holly, how are you? And what's up?
I'm good. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Stephen Greer's documentary, Unacknowledged. He has actually done 5 documentaries, and he, of course, has been a part of a trillion of them, I'm sure. But his company, his own thing, he started in 2013-14. He did It's Time for You to Know, which I haven't heard really much about that one. Have you ever heard of that one?
It's Time for You to Know.
Yes.
I don't know. It actually doesn't even sound familiar.
It doesn't. So that's one I want to look up, because the rest of them I've heard of, but that one I haven't heard anything about. So anyway, Unacknowledged was his second one, and that was in 2017. So the information that we give out today, if I give a number of, we've had this many cases of whatever, that's going to be as of 2016, 2017, when they were making this documentary.
Sure.
And then in 2020, he came out with Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is all about how he has learned to make contact with the aliens.
Yep.
And he even has these big conferences where all of these people get together. Like he's having one in July, which Steve and I would love to go to. In California.
That's also the national. I think that's also the National Press Club event that we're going to take note from here in a little bit. I think it's that event as well. I'm actually shocked because I looked and I believe we heard a clip or something of him saying that there's still a couple tickets left. I actually looked and there was, and it only holds 500 people, he said.
Right.
Why are there seats available to this, you guys?
How much does it cost to go? I forget.
I think it's like $600 for general admission and got you pretty much everything. And then for full access, unlimited VIP, it was $1,600. So it's not chump change, but it's not ridiculous. It's very strange to me that 500, maybe he had that number wrong, because it just seems wrong to me that 500 wouldn't be sold.
Well, then you also have travel to California if you don't live there.
There's people worldwide who are following everything Stephen Greer does.
Right.
So how it doesn't make any sense to me.
How often does he have these? He has these a little frequently, doesn't he? He doesn't just do this once a year. I think he has this a couple of times a year, doesn't he?
I think he does some of these CE5 events, but
that's what I mean.
Yeah, but I think this is the National Press Conference one too. So it's going to be kind of like all encompassing. It's because as I was reading about it, they have things at night where you'll participate with him, but you'll be broken down into groups. So you won't necessarily be with Stephen Greer, but you'll be with others. But it depends on which package I don't know. Maybe the number was off. So maybe there was only 500 tickets left last he knew. I just can't see.
He said 100 tickets were left and 500 capacity.
And that's another strange thing. So if there's only 100 left, they can be general admission or the one. So if everybody buys general admission, you only have 500 tickets. It's $600. You're only bringing in 30. What are you bringing in? It's just, I don't know.
He didn't.
It seems odd to me, but okay. That's fine. Maybe it is pricey. I just thought for a bunch of scientists and people that like-minded individuals worldwide, you'd think it'd be actually very tough to get a ticket. Right. But you know what I mean? It seems like it'd be very tough to get a ticket. They're still available.
Yeah, you would think, but
I don't know. I guess maybe I'm wrong. Clearly I am, because they are available.
The Monroe Institute, you know how I was talking about you can go and get trained to be remote view to learn how to do that. Those tickets are sold out for this year already. So I mean, those sell out pretty quick. So you would think if that sells out, that something like
Aloha, Light
these
Bright.
really
How are
would.
you? And I saw somebody else in here too, but now they're gone. They were here for a quick second, just like an alien sighting. But hi, Light Bright, and there was somebody else in here. But glad to have you. Aloha. Sorry, hi.
That's okay. No, that's fine. Um. Anyway, but I know that the singer Demi Lovato. I don't know if you know who she is, Steve, but because she's not
Yes.
really your kind of music. But anyway, she is very involved with his CE5 deal, and she goes to a lot of these things. And I bet she will probably be at this one. I would imagine.
Yeah.
But
See, I think that's what I was trying to figure out. So this is like I think this is the big one. Like you said, I think he might do other ones and stuff, but I think this is the big one.
okay,
But anyway, getting back to the fact of if people haven't seen, um,
right? So,
um, yeah, let's get back to that to the documentary for a minute. His second because I was like I asked you before we went live, like that involved the energy system, and I think that's something that we should at least talk about because I'm sure that will be a whole episode of its own.
yeah. Well,
Um,
the fourth documentary that he did was in 21, and that was the Cosmic Hoax.
okay,
And then 23 was when he did the last century and how to reclaim it, and that one is all about the energy deal that you're talking about.
right. So you guys, all of his documentaries are amazing, but if you are interested in that one aspect, because I know we talked about it last week too, that one is the 2023 one you said.
Yes.
Yeah, the 2023 documentary is the one that tells you about basically how I mean, because it's a whole. This is a whole episode that we'll probably do, but regardless, you guys can go watch it right now. Is that basically how everybody could be having free energy? Let's just keep it that simple.
Right. Unacknowledged, though, they do a good job of covering that, thoroughly. I mean, obviously not as thoroughly as an entire documentary, but that's what I like about Unacknowledged is because it really touches on every important factor in this whole game.
Yeah, I mean, if you were looking at the whole Stephen Greer library, I mean, first of all, there's so much stuff that isn't in the five you're talking about, but or whatever. But just the ones that are like publicly the five his documentaries, not any offshoot things. I would if somebody were like, dude, what's the one I should watch? I'd say that one.
Yeah, I would too.
Unacknowledged. Like I mean, it's tough because they're all good, but I'd say watch Unacknowledged.
Yeah. And like I said before, my husband doesn't normally watch documentaries. He doesn't really listen to any UFO news or know anything or care about it or whatever. But I had it on one day and he started watching it and got involved with it and he really liked it and learned a lot. So anyway, but all of his documentaries also, they are not funded through any big company or corporation like a big movie normally is. They're all crowdfunded.
Hmm.
So that's a pretty big undertaking for him to do because most major films have a $2 to $3 million just advertising budget. And basically they advertise by word of mouth.
Sure.
So
Well,
I
I
thought
mean,
that
that's been his
was
entire career, though. I mean, since being a doctor in the '90s, because even when he was at SETI at Berkeley, that was the first, like I was talking about last week. That was the first, not only crowdfunded but computer powered crowdfunded. So, like, if you ran their screensaver, you were helping UC Berkeley power the servers that were running the SETI equipment, all of it.
right.
So it's like I don't even know like how does it's pretty amazing. Like how does burning energy at your house and running your internet power something else?
Yeah.
Aren't you
Then,
just running up a power bill?
yeah. That's
But somehow it was like it was like and then you like I said, you could set the threshold too for screensaver mode or for when it was off. I don't even know if you can still download the SETI um um any of that stuff anymore since he's gone. I have no idea. Um but yeah, I mean, it's basically everything he does is crowdsourced.
right.
And of course it would have to be. I mean, like the disclosure project that we were talking to you guys about last week in the archive. Right now that's free, but even as he very well says in a video I was watching that, that very likely becomes I mean, not. not he doesn't want it to, but it very likely goes behind a paywall.
Right. If he doesn't get enough donations.
Right, and like we were
So,
talking about with it might be a little throwing to everybody because who in this space really wants to submit an email and password? Holly told us last week, and then I actually heard something about it as well that kind of just said exactly what she said, was that what he was saying was that the reason that it has to be behind the, even for free, that you have to put an email and password in, is because it's, and I do know this could easily be true, is it stops Russian and other bots that can be purchased that then can go in there and run up the, just like keep watching the videos and run up the threshold so high that the cost of running it would become unmanageable.
right.
So that's why he even said potentially, if things were to somehow get through the simple system of a email password, that and if the usage was getting too high, that it will have to go behind a paywall.
Well, shoot, not even just the Russian government, but our own government.
Right, but I'm just like I don't think that when we're talking about bots, I don't think this is, again, like we're not targeting anybody, we're being PC here, but most of bot invasion comes from Russia, and they're paid for from anywhere. I mean, like our government could pay for it and probably is still doing it through Russia.
Well, I'm just saying that our government may not want all this information thrown out there either. So they may
Well,
want,
it's already out there now.
that's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
I guess what I'm trying to say is make sure that you guys go check it out, because you never know. I mean, as far as I know, it won't be shut down, but who even knows about that or whatever. But I'm sure there's already mirroring of the site, so if it goes down, it comes right back up. But go check it out while it's free, everybody, please. And if you're listening, oh, I cannot remember what the
And make a
website
little donation. I
is.
mean, even 10 or $20 if you can do that, because that may not seem like a lot to you, but if you have a million people that put in $20, that adds up. So
Right. I'm not sure what the website is. It's DPA archive or something, but you can go to stephengreer.com. I know that you can go to stephengreer.com, and from there you should be able to find it. But because it's such a big thing going right now, I'm sure it's on everything of his. Or you can find Stephen Greer on Twitter, and I'm sure it's on there and anywhere he is right now. His most recent posts probably involved what we're talking about. But go check it out. It is the complete 33-year database of UFO history, alien acknowledgement, and people who have given testimony, and people who and used their names and their ranks and file in the military and whatnot, or watchdogs or whoever, and then also people who are still on the redacted list, which actually makes me think of something Holly talked about last week that really kind of disturbed me a little bit, that like these people until June 20th who are whistleblowers like aren't protected. It really has been like kind of eating away at me, because I'm like, well, their names can be blacked out, but it scares me because there are absolutely the wrong people know about who their names are already.
oh, I'm sure.
Whether it's blacked out on a file or not, that doesn't matter. Like they can put two and two together and go, what? A 4-star general from this base? Well, there's only 3. So, you know what I mean? Like I
True.
mean,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to things like that.
Well, and
Like
I'm
I really,
surprised that he hasn't had more attempts on his life, honestly.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, that is kind of strange, huh?
I'm sure
Or
that he
right, or to be honest, and I got to knock wood when I say this. It's, to me, it's even more interesting that he hasn't just gone missing,
well, I guess I meant that is the
because they
same
because
thing.
they love that. They love when there's not a story but he's missing, because then they can point on him and say, he's been fraud forever and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Now he's in
You know,
hiding.
yeah, exactly. When
Right.
really he might be in hiding from them, but in the ground somewhere.
Right. They hit him.
Right? They hit him. But so anything else about unacknowledged, or is it just people should just go watch it? First of all, many of you have probably already seen it. And if you're noticing my sound a little off tonight, it's when I'm right now, I'm right up on the mic. When I'm not, it's because I have a weird setup going to play some clips here. Um, but is there anything else they should know, Holly, about unacknowledged or?
Just a little bit about Stephen Greer, that he got involved with this because when he was 8 or 9 years old, in broad daylight, he was out with some neighborhood boys and they actually saw a UFO.
Yep.
So I thought that was pretty interesting that as a child he saw that. And of course, his parents just blew it off because they didn't think it was anything. And then in 1990, he formed the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence to form a diplomatic corps to make peaceful contact. And that was basically really all he had a goal to do, was to make contact with them. Well, then the higher intelligence people of our country found out about him and they came a calling. By 1992, he started getting visits from the head of the Army Intelligence, people inside the National Security Agency, and other three-letter agencies, all those people. And they had an interest in, what he was doing. And so other people started coming. And when Clinton became president, a man who was friends with the director of the CIA came to him and said, look, you're going to be the first person to brief the director of the CIA and the Clinton administration on this, because they've made inquiries about the UFOs and aliens and they've been lied to. And he didn't believe it. He's like, oh, there's no way, how could they keep that from the president and the director of the CIA? He just was blown away by that. But that's basically how he got involved, was in 1992 by them coming to him. And he actually is in tears in part of this documentary where he's talking about, hey, I'm this young ER doctor and I've got these people coming to me. And he was just so blown away by the fact that this is where our government was and everything, that he was just, it really just emotionally still gets to him today, which I
Yeah.
thought was, pretty neat. But anyway,
I think it'd be pretty cool if when you met people, there was like, and maybe it wouldn't last forever, but like on your first impression for like 30 seconds on their forehead was like a trust meter. You know what I mean? Like nothing else about the personality, nothing else about if they're playing somebody to you that they're not, or anything about that. Just trust meter.
right. Yeah, that'd
Like
be nice.
from a very light yellow at the bottom to like a very hot red at the top. And if it's red, you can't trust them at
Can you
all.
imagine that in the dating world? Really?
I mean, Holly, it's not like we can do that. I mean, it's a great idea, but I don't.
Oh, I
Without
bet
an
somebody
alien
could.
intervention, we just can't. So, aliens, if you're listening, please hook us up with that ability. That would be sweet.
They're like,
That'd
oh,
be,
we
and
already
you
have
don't
that.
understand how much that would help us weed out the ones who are the jackholes, basically. Like, you'd be actually
Well,
helping us. Maybe that's a technology you could give us that doesn't feel threatening. So,
the first part of Unacknowledged basically talks all about the sightings and this and that. They also talk about, throughout the film, the control of the media and how the government has that. They talk about the false flag operations that the government has run to, make you think that it's this or that. The weather balloons and how they tried to say, oh yeah, look at this. This is what they saw and this is what it looks like. And just all the different things that they did, plus the power and all that stuff. So it really covers so much that it just is really one of the best documentaries I've ever seen.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially to anybody who enjoys looking into this stuff and on whatever level of belief you're in. If you're watching any of this kind of stuff, this is kind of one of those should absolutely, no matter what, be in your top 5. Period.
Yeah.
Um,
And throughout the
there's
film, too, they also quote many different people throughout history, presidents and people that were high up in the government that are making statements about the existence of UFOs. And
oh
so
yeah, yeah.
gives a lot of credibility to it.
Um, so yeah, guys, check out that. Check out all of his stuff. If you want to watch I can't. What is the CE5 one called?
That is called,
It's the
hold on.
if you guys are interested in learning about what CE5 is, but
Yeah.
again, I would say watch Unacknowledged first. like Holly said. Those are good. But they're all good. They really are.
Sorry.
So
It's unacknowledged close encounters of the fifth kind.
right,
That's the CE5 one.
right. Yep. Okay. So that okay. Is that number
Most of
4
them
then,
can be
right?
they can be
Yeah.
found on Amazon Prime. Most of them.
Yep. Amazon Prime or Apple Store. If you guys rent there or whatever, they're all in there too. Um, but yeah, Amazon Prime, I believe, or uh, I would imagine as well. Um, mm, well, I guess that's enough, really.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh,
trying. Those people who want to stay away from Amazon, I'm trying to like help you do that.
why? Who wants to stay with me, Amazon?
Well, just because I mean it already owns the world. Can we just try and hold it back a little bit?
I can't imagine life without Amazon, to be honest.
Bye bye, mom and pop shops
I know. It's just so
forever.
it's so easy though.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, so what do you have for us? You've got some stuff that you want to
So
talk about.
yeah, let's walk through. Let's see how much of this we can get through. I don't know if this will fit into this whole piece, but or maybe we'll just skip some of the stuff. But let's. I want to take you guys through basically last year's National Press Club event, which is the same thing that we're talking about that he's doing here in like a month. So this is from a year ago, and he was starting to disclose a lot of what was going on. And I've just taken some clips, like here, this first one's a couple, it's like 2 minutes. All the ones in the beginning are like 2-3 minutes. And then if we have time, we have some, I actually have some of the witness accounts that we could take a listen to. So hang on. Understand, and particularly the media understand. But first, I want to tell you what we've handed off this week to the Congress and to the White House and to the Pentagon Aero Office, the AARO office that's tasked with investigating this. So we can go to the list of the material in the archive. It has government documents in the tens of thousands from all those countries: United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, and others. We have 145 top secret facilities, some of which are black sites that are named and on a map. And you'll see them in a moment. The supporting documentation of it are in the archive, meaning the witnesses' testimony, who they were, when they were there, where the locations is, sometimes up to where the gate is. And that's been handed over to the United States government this week. There are 752 and counting whistleblowers who come forward over the years. Some of them are now deceased. But what's important, even the ones who are deceased, if you go to their history and their command and what they provided, there is an investigative thread to follow back in. Very important. There are also files with all these witness testimonies that have been provided up to date. In the archive are 121. We learned of another one last night from a very high level whistleblower who is not ready to come forward. So there's actually 122 crash retrieval cases of these UAPs. And those are documented. Michael Schratt, who is an aerospace historian and is working full-time with us beginning in November, had worked for Lockheed, but not the Skunk Works, on conventional operations. And he is doing those investigations for us and also the beautiful illustrations of what these witnesses have had to share. And you will see those. Then, so remember, this is a year ago. So, you know, we're when we're hearing about this database, this is the database that's now public, but then was around but was not public. So it's pretty crazy that right now we have anything that relates to that is now public, even though he's saying it is not because it's a year ago. But let's go through a couple of these real quick. So I wanted to mention that these bases, if you look at them, let's go to, this is where all these illegal operations have happened. I'm saying illegal because we can prove that this information, as Senator Inouye said, you'll hear his statement in a moment, has been run by a very shadowy, deep black operation. And we're not talking the
legal black budget of the United States. We're talking about projects that presidents and CI directors, secretaries of defense, members of the Congress who have a need to know and are cleared TSSCI in SCIFs, secure compartmented information facilities, have been blatantly either gaslit, denied access. That is the foundation of everything we've done, is that these projects are a priori illegal and therefore unconstitutional and have to be reined in, because not doing so is a threat to the national security. So here is your list. I'm not going to go through 145 sites. Some of them are black sites. Some of them are bases you know about, like Wright-Patterson.
So what do you make of that piece, Holly? I'm just curious.
I'm sorry, what?
What did you make of that piece right there? Anything special or no?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, just it's I don't know. I think I've been listening so much to this that I feel like I've heard everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, no,
But
I'm bringing it up because I'm saying that he's starting to talk about, and this is last year. He's starting to talk about how a lot of these black ops are go. We can't think of them like government black ops. Some of them are beyond our governments. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's one story in here specifically that it hopefully we'll get to, because it talks about running into one of these black teams in, I think it was, is it Thailand, somewhere over there,
are you talking
Indonesia
about the
somewhere.
guys that were coming up over the hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I do remember that story. I've actually heard that a couple of times.
So I guess my point there on that
But
one is that, like,
you don't think that they were government related though?
I mean, in the in the Indonesian rainforest,
I don't know. I just assumed
I
that
don't know.
everything
I
was
think some of these step so far above governments. Um, because I mean, if you look where these black ops go on, like there in Indonesia is that's the known training ground for terrorists. So I mean, it's just kind of like there is no government there. So why would they be doing this there when there's kind of no government? You know what I mean?
So is he saying that he's going to come out with telling us who the other people are besides the government?
From what he knows, I mean, he kind of already says what he knows, because they had the upper hand on the Marines there. But we'll get to that. But they had the upper hand on them because they had more people at the facility at the time. So they were like telling the Marines where to put their IDs and stuff on themselves. But let me see what else I got here, because I had a couple of. If I need to, I'll just stop it.
There's another gentleman. I'm going to run through these very quickly. We'd be here for 30 hours if I didn't. I'm just giving you a tip of the iceberg, right? This is a guy who is at the Dugway Proving Grounds, very key facility, MS we call him. He worked for Seed Martin Corporation, contractor, and he was in a facility that had an extraterrestrial vehicle that was being studied by scientists. He knows the chief scientist involved. He has named that individual to us, and they can all be subpoenaed now. So this object was there in 2009. He didn't know the date of acquisition, but he thought it was fairly recent. Next. He also was read into and had the chief scientist show him the location, which we now have, of a dumb, deep underground military base that is in the Dugway sector, so-called Avery sector, Avery, and it has huge capacity for parking. You go in, and there's a vast underground complex in that location. That location has been handed off to investigators with the U.S. government. Next. This gives an illustration of the size of this. You could put easily on the platform that goes down the Air Force One. It's a very large elevator, goes down underground.
So
what's going on with this? All of you have seen over the last 4 or 5 years these footage come out, and the Pentagon's confirmed there are three-dimensional objects with sensors and what have you. The so-called tic-tac. And
okay, hold on. So now, yeah, I'll go to the testimony, because those I have by name. So let's see how many of these we can get through, because these all have some pretty, I would say number one, go find the video. It's you can look up Stephen Greer on YouTube, um, and it's Monday, June 12th, 2023. Dr. Greer's groundbreaking National Press Club event, free to watch. It's on
And
there. It's 3 hours long. I would say go watch the whole thing. So, but what we're going to do here is play a couple of the people's testimonies, and then maybe have a little reflection after each one. So let's start with DC
hold on one
Long.
second. I want to mention also that when you go to look for that, it's not under the video tab, it's under the live tab. Because I know when I went to look for it, I was looking for it and I was like, where is it? Where is it? And I was like, oh, yeah, duh, it's under live. So on his
Yeah.
channel, make sure you look under the live.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I could post it in the chat or something.
Also, I'm on his channel on YouTube on my other phone. And
But again, it won't help anybody because most people aren't tuning into the live; they're listening on the replay. So, but again, guys, like we said, I just named it. Yeah, go to Stephen Greer; you'll see it. It's from a year ago. It's 3 hours long. I think it's the only 3 hour long one he has on his channel. So,
the Cosmic Hoax, that one documentary that he did also, he did post that on his YouTube channel, the entire documentary, 2 years ago. So that you can also find under his videos.
Okay, so there's a long part from Colonel David Heckart, but that's like a 25-minute discussion on that video. But there is some great testimony from him. He takes it all the way back to Roswell. But we'll start here, excuse me, with Michael Herrera. We'll play his.
Of great support for us. He's a Marine who in 2009 in Indonesia had a direct.
By the way, before I start this here, just know, guys, this is the story that we were just talking about. And this is the one we were just talking about. So with the Black Ops. So everybody take, please post in the comments any questions you have, comments, questions, concerns, as we might have them as well. But take a listen because this is a very strange story.
Encounter with one of the man-made operations, and he is Michael Herrera. He has very courageously come forward. The first time he contacted me, because I know of these sort of operations that he came across on his mission, I told him that every single person I knew who knew about what he had seen had not lived to tell this story. He is enormously courageous. Thank you and welcome to Michael Herrera.
Well, thank you all for being here. What I'm about to tell you hasn't been something that I've disclosed until recently in the help of Dr. Greer, among other people, so I appreciate your help with this. In 2009, my unit, which was most degraded infantry battalion in the entire Marine Corps, which was 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, was called in to do humanitarian assistance operations out in the Philippines, which was Operation Quetzana, which we were attached to the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which conducts maritime operations all throughout Southeast Asia, in conjunction with the 7th Naval Fleet, which houses one landing helo deck, or LHD, among LPDs, which is what I was on, called a USS Denver. Ironically, that's where I'm from, so kind of felt like home. Now, during that operation in Quetzana in the Philippines, they had actually heard that a tsunami and earthquake hit the western part of Sumatra, which is western Indonesia, Padang City more specifically. Out of all the ships in the 7th Fleet, the ship I was on was the only one that was routed to that location, which was oddly strange. But then again, this is my first humanitarian operation, so I don't know the logistics of it. But the skipper of the ship would probably know that information. So this happened September 30th. We end up getting called and dropped anchor around October 8th. We are briefed in the ward room, which is the officers' mess, where they eat like their cafeteria per se. We're briefed that there is some of President Obama's family members that are present on either in the city or somewhere near there. They had a SEAL platoon that was ready to go to retrieve those people. Us knowing well that Indonesia is also the second largest terrorist capital where they train these guys, and they'll send them up to whatever theater of operation where anybody wants a piece of the United States, they ship them up to go handle it. So We know that well, and we were then briefed that we were going to be armed during this operation, just to also provide security for the transportation coming to basically drop off medical supplies, sheltering items, food, purified water, things like that. So they ended up selecting certain Marines to go ahead and do this. We were only in sticks of six Marines, so it had NCOs on top of other Marines to help with that. So we again boarded CH-53 Super Stallions, which are gigantic helicopters that are roughly 100 feet long. I love the design of them. It's my personal favorite. But we ended up boarding this on the ship, and we flew to the southwestern part of the city, which is Padang. Looked a lot different through satellite imagery that I've recently seen. Back then is a lot different, especially because most of it was decimated, on fire, rubble, flooded, you name it. Basically, the worst kind of scenario you could ever see. From then, once we touched down on this landing strip, it took probably about 2 minutes. And then again, the pilots got radio confirmation to go ahead and drop us into certain parts. So we again dropped to a hasty LZ, which took probably about 6-7 minutes to fly to from that position. And we dropped to a hasty LZ. We got off the bird, and what we were instructed to do at that point through the briefing was to push to a high ground at least to get better observation. As a Marine, the tactical advantage that you get from having a observation from a top point is you see everything clearly. You could also, coordinate from there. At that time, we had did a tactical column, which we were able to get eyes on pretty much everything, especially with 6 Marines. So we have the effective communication at that point. If we need to engage, we can properly do it within the amount of ammunition we've got, as well as the weapons that we got, which were only M16A4s. So at that point, we decided to push forward. We trekked up about 300 meters. At this time, I have a Panasonic camera that has the ability to take photographs. It has a ability to take videos, obviously. When we got to this high point, I was taking video camera, and I had actually turned to the north, which just kind of slopes down. And right there was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, especially with jungle terrain, things like that. Vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years, was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray as well as a dark matte black. So in between, that's what it kept, and it was very smooth. We had all looked at each other as we got online, and we decided to investigate. The further thing I want to say is that I actually took pictures and video of this before we actually trucked down. We had a dump pouch where we basically, if we expend ammunition, we want to retain our magazines, so we put those there. So I dropped my camera in there, and we decided to go down. We didn't have any communications, which was weird, and that was a very odd thing, and it's something that either could have been good that we didn't, or it could have been something that could have been very bad. And it just however you want to look at that. Once we got down this slope, we were approximately 150 meters away from this craft. When we all got to the point where we could see it, just like behind here, again, Mr. Schratt, phenomenal job. You could see that the craft here actually was roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft. It was rotating a clockwise motion. The panels here that you see, the black ones, at least 3 of them, was like a Vanta black, very dark. I have no idea what that was. On the very top, there was like a pyramid structure that you could see the shadowing of it, which would elicit that was a pyramid structure. And it had an audible hum to it, kind of like a guitar amp if you were to unplug that, or like a transformer. It's very audible. If I was to hear that sound again, I could tell you, okay, it's probably this thing or something similar to that. It's very distinct. And the way that it was floating, which was about 10 or 15, 20 feet off the ground, it was kind of a very eerie thing to see because I've never seen anything like that in my life. When we got up to that point, we were then intercepted by a team of soldiers or rogue military force, if you will. The most concerning thing about this is they all had American dialects. They had American gear. They had OTVs, black. They had black camouflage. They had very similar setups to what we have, but more high speed, something what you would see special operation groups these days have. They had no insignias on. They had no ranks. They had nothing that would signify who they were. They had black ball caps. They had M4A4s that were equipped with ACOGs, which was a step up from what we were currently issued, as well as PEC 16 IR illumination devices that you use for night vision and night patrols, things like that. So we were engaged. We had 8 of them put the drop on us. You could audibly hear them blow the safety selectors off. They basically started screaming at us, telling us what we were doing. We were not allowed to be there. Who were we with? What were we doing there? Threatened that they could kill us right then and there. We could get lost in the jungle. They could throw us out of a helicopter if they needed to. It was very nerve-wracking at that point, especially looking to my fellow Marines and seeing the reactions on their faces too. We were all freaking scared, to say nonetheless. So with that being said, each Marine was then patted down along with myself. We had our weapons taken from us. They were basically cleared in condition 4, which means they had no round chamber, no magazine in. They dumped our magazines out of our mag pouches as well into the deck. And then again, because of Marine Corps order, how things are with that, we were told to keep our military ID in our left breast pocket. So they knew that. They asked for our military identification. We gave it to them, obviously, because they have guns in our face. So provided that to them. They had something that looked like modern day smartphones, but this is 2009, so it's not really as high tech compared to obviously today. So they took some pictures of our military ID, and then they had something that reminded me of a BAT system, which is a biometrics tracking system that we would use. This is for insurgents or anything like that. It would take fingerprints, it would take retina scans, it would take pictures of them and document them. So if there's other militaries that were coming to relieve our post, they would actually have this information too to know who they are dealing with. That's what it reminded me of, and I had trouble scanning the IDs. As this is going on, we're going back between these guys as well as what's going on in the background. At that time, there was 4 of these trucks, which were F-350s. They were up armored. They were pretty beefy. They had weapon cases that I've seen before because of something that we've actually loaded weapons into. And they had 2 of them that were in the back of each truck. They also had these containers that was illustrated right here, which come to find out through recent revelations from yesterday from somebody who came forward to Dr. Greer. I don't know who they are, but what they had told him and what he has told me is that this gentleman knows exactly what these were used for because they had like a cylinder on the front, which is either for oxygen or what I hypothesized was for vacuum sealing, which lead me to suspect that they were smuggling narcotics or drugs. Come to find out it's more disturbing than that. This gentleman has firsthand account with this and says that it was for people. It's very disheartening, especially because that part of the world have already gotten ravaged, and it's something that is very hard to see right now because of what I've witnessed, and it's very disheartening. And this is why I'm up here. So they loaded these onto this platform that you can see right there, and as I got up there, like I said, I was going back and forth. These guys are still searching our stuff. They're still, pointing their weapons at us. And after the last 2 trucks that I saw that actually got onto that platform unloaded, they had 4 guys in each truck that would unload everything. However they did it, I can't tell you because, again, I was focused on this as well. And these trucks drove off. As that happened, this platform actually rose up off the ground itself. The top part of the craft actually met it down in the middle like this, and it formed into one solid piece. It floated right above the tree line. As soon as it was able to break that tree line, it actually had on the corners of each of these, which was an octagonal shape craft, by the way, on each corner it emanated a light. It was either red, yellow, green, or blue. Only those 4 colors I can distinctly remember. It didn't make any additional high-pitched sounds when it rose up. Once it got past that tree line, it shot over to the left, basically where the ocean was, at so fast, I would estimate probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 miles an hour instantaneous like that. There was no rotor wash, no exhaust that would disturb the trees, vegetation. The coconuts that were on these trees were not even touched. It produced no sonic boom.
So that is absolutely crazy. Hopefully everybody was paying attention there. But what I was going to say, Holly, you there? Oh, Holly looks to be muted.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Oh, there she is. Okay. I just want to make sure. So what I found to be really disgusting, number one, was that he sees, basically what like extremely large, like industrial vacuum seal bags and he's thinking drugs, but it's humans. That's extremely disturbing, I gotta say. The vehicle moving without any sonic boom or any kind of jet stream or anything, and going from 0 to 5,000 miles per hour, that really, I mean, nobody's has that technology here. So clearly, if to believe in this whole story, you have to believe in the interchange with the aliens there. And so here's what I would say though, when you were saying like, um, was it a government behind it? So Indonesia like lets us be in parts of it, right? So it's like we're a friendly on some level, right? So if it was another government that was also a friendly, now I don't know of many countries that we're friendly with that have anybody other than their country's like army or whatever, in sync with ours, or else we're not welcome there, and neither is any other government. But I don't think that was another country's government, and it definitely wasn't Indonesia's. Who has the ability to pull the trump card on the Marines in a friendly country? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like obviously they go down there, and Marines are not stupid. They're very well trained. They go down into this, they descend into this. Of course they scouted it to some level, right? I mean, they
Right.
absolutely did. And of course he doesn't get into those kind of details, but of course they did. So they had to know the amount of people. They had to, something was a little off. But I mean, somehow they felt overwhelmed, which normally wouldn't be a Marine response to put your guns down.
Right.
Like basically, like we've all seen the movies where like it's a jungle warfare and you see one army walk up on another and nobody drops the weapons. That's how, I'm not trying to play it as a movie, but that's how I would see that situation going. Like our Marines wouldn't put down their weapons had the whole disc thing not been going on, and you walk up on this black ops, operation in a country we're friendly with, they're not putting their weapons down.
Right. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, how scared would they have to be?
And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
They don't get scared. The Marines they're not to be messed with, like straight up. Think what you want about all our governments. I'm just saying that's the most highly trained, skilled set of people we have, and they absolutely won't put their weapon down just because another person has a weapon. That goes against everything that they know.
Right.
So the part that isn't mentioned there is why they did. The fact that they either were outgunned to such a degree, but I have to believe that they actually were more. You got the other group playing like actually able to do the, hey, put your weapons down, and like they're kind of almost like side taken by this whole event that's happening. So maybe that's part of why they did. They're so off guard. Like, wait, what the hell's this?
Right.
Floating, why is there and for him to be able to say that 3 of his helicopters could have fit under it, he obviously was taking it in at such a degree because he was able to say that immediately.
Well, and I'm sure that he's heard enough over time about abductions. He was probably terrified that if he didn't do what he was supposed to do or seemed like a threat, that maybe a beam would come out and zap him or, suck him up in there, or, who knows?
Right. Yeah.
That would be my fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I see Mandy mentioned it. She said something about, and thank you for the clap, Mandy. Not the disease, but the gift, the beans. Thank you for the clap beans. I don't know how to say it right. And for those of you listening on the replay, and I don't edit this out, yeah, I don't edit it out. I just edit out the start and the end, and the banter stuff, but I don't edit the middle. So understand, if you're listening on another pod player, it's just the one we're live on has a bean system, just like any pod player has their system. So thank you to everybody listening. But yeah, let me. I want to hear this part of this DC long, and then we have a Raytheon contractor too, and I think that's kind of, and then Dr. Greer's closing statement from the event last year and where we should be now, and I think that's about what we'll be able to fit in. It's actually going to run just a little long, but let's see. We won't listen to this whole thing, but we'll listen to enough where you guys get a feel.
Quote unquote abductions. In this case, a very decorated and heroic man was essentially tortured by this. This is a crime that must be investigated and brought to justice quickly. The next witness is DC Long from Fort Bragg. He was involved in an incidental event. Many of these witnesses at this point were people who saw something they shouldn't, and there were reprisals and things that happened. It's a pattern. The ones that were read in for a number of years, like one man that I shared earlier, 10 years in those operations, those are the ones waiting for greater protection for themselves before they step forward, but we have many of them. So with no further ado, I welcome my friend, DC Long.
I promise mine's going to be much quicker than some of these other guys, and this is the way I talk. So I apologize for that as well. Everyone that I've met here, I would love to go through every name. I would love to go through every situation. What these gentlemen have, we could spend years talking about it, just getting to all the moments and everything that meant the most to us. And unfortunately, I have a very short amount of time to do that. My military service began in 1997 and it stretched to 2013 until I was medically retired, injuries received in a combat jump. Ironically enough, the quick story that I'm going to tell you guys has virtually nothing to do with my military career until it got to the very end of the story. Long story short, my father grew up as a contractor. That was his entire life. He could build anything with his hands. He could tear it down and build it again for you. I say away that, and the only reason I bring him up is because my father is how I got tied into this story. As a government contractor on Fort Bragg, he met some people. He got friends with some people in the upper echelons of the military, the tip of the spear. The guys who didn't need the Army Corps of Engineers permission to build anything that they wanted. These people that I met when I was 13 years old. We would go on hunts together. We would go on fishing trips together, riding their planes. They would take us all over the continental U.S. just to enjoy their time together. People that I thought were my friends, that I didn't know that they were in the military until years after I had been in myself. We meet up at 18th Airborne Headquarters by my father's request from me. He asked me if I could help him assist. We didn't know where the project was. We were told that we were going to be met by an escort from the JFK Warfare Center. He shows up. I recognize him as one of my father's friends. I overheard that the place we're going to be going is Range 19. I'd never heard of this place before, hadn't since. They put us in a van, no windows, no partition to the front. So we were joking, what did you say? Because we're taking you to Leavenworth. We show up at Range 19. The only thing that was directly in front of me looked like a bunker, 45 degree inches from a concrete bunker, covered in trash. Looked like an actual dump. We open up, there's another escort, and they're waiting on us. They take us to a freight elevator. We take the elevator down. At that time, we were instructed, keep your heads down, keep your eyes on the heels of the men in front of you, or you'll be fired upon. I've heard plenty of instances of military jargon. People like to jibe each other. I didn't take it as a joke, but I knew enough to just do what he told me to. I didn't want to risk it. As soon as the freight elevator opened, the first thing that I could see were a few personnel connexes to the right in a large hangar, maybe twice, 3 times the size of the area that we're in now. There was a monolithic slab directly in front of me that was being held up by nothing. The closer that I got to this slab, I felt an intense vibration inside of my body. I never felt anything like that before in my life, never anything since, but it left no sound. The loudest thing in that room was the silence and the footfalls of the people in front of and behind me. As I got closer, my natural southern curiosity took over. Oh, my shoes are untied. So I go down just to take a peek. And there's absolutely nothing up underneath this monolithic slab that if I had to estimate would be well over 100 tons. Absolutely nothing holding it up. You can see by the picture, there's another boulder directly behind it. It was flat on the ground. There were two other people beside it. I could only see heels and feet. To the right, you could see what looked like a boulder. And all three of these that I could tell had this box on top that was black with spires that came off, and I couldn't tell where it was connected, but it obviously had something to do with the levitation. The one to the right was being spun by the personnel that you could see in the picture. At this point, from my knees, the escort needed me in the back, said, let's go. We follow on, go downstairs to our appointed place to take measurements for an.
So Holly's on mute, but where this ends up going, just so we got time to get to this last one, who's a Raytheon contractor. But there's so many others too to listen to. But where this is going with DC Long here, he's talking about Fort Bragg, which I believe is North Carolina.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So he's talking about he's talking about like his time in there, and where it ends up going is that, again, when he's talking about the drawings, there aren't pictures. These are but when they're doing the testimonials, if you watch the YouTube video, they do have some drawings that people have done, and then they've kind of verified, yeah, that's kind of what it looked like. But clearly they're working with elevation, levitation, things of and how to do it without with next to nothing power supplies, if that black box on the top. But if it's 100 multiple tons, like he says, no way anything that we even have could lift that. So anyway, he's talking about all this, and what ends up happening is, like a lot of these, at the end of this thing, him and his dad are asked to, and the others are asked to sign an NDA, and his dad doesn't sign it, and he tells him not to. And within a day, their whole lives are wrecked. His dad's business has been raided, and every single thing is removed. His house has been raided, and everything's been removed. There's people, like, the dad ends up like being like, he's a millionaire, but he's not like some kabillionaire. He's just he's done well for himself. He's retired. He ends up like being without money in like over the course of weeks. Yeah. And I mean, they literally
It was the saddest story of all the stories I heard. I thought that was such a sad story.
Right. And then this son, even the way he ties in, like, when he finds out the dad is dying, he goes down to see the dad. The dad's like 93 pounds, and you guys can go hear the whole story itself. But, and he himself has gone down in weight, and he's got a big beard, and he's in disguise. So again, at this point last year, these were stories where we just kind of had to believe Stephen Greer, which most of us do, but we just had to believe Stephen Greer that okay, these disclosure files, great. I'm glad that you're making it a database. No, I had no problem with it last year, but now again, that database is out there. You go look at it. I mean, now you can go look at these different events. So like from the database, you can go if you're curious. This was the one, so the guy's name, DC Long, and he's from Fort Bragg. If you go type that in the search over there, you'll find his testimonies in the archive. So again, just simple things you can do while you're even listening to this. Maybe you can even, unless you're driving, in which case don't. But you can go look this stuff up while we're
yeah, I did listen to it while I was driving, and that is the one good thing about YouTube too, is that you can also speed it up. So I had it sped up to 1.25.
Oh yeah, and you can do that on all the pod players too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in fact, like, you can default set pod players to whatever you kind of like, and like most of them go up to like 2.53 times. So
yeah, well, I don't like to set it overall.
Yeah, no, that's overkill. I don't even know how you take it in at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, just some people and some podcasts are faster than others, and some of them might have to speed up.
Yeah, but don't speed Holly and I up because
Yeah, we talk fast enough as it is.
Okay, so anyway, that's a super sad story. Like Holly said, it not a good ending. Basically, lives wrecked simply for going to look at potentially doing some work on something. Like,
Yeah.
you
And the
know,
speed at which they destroyed that father was
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. I mean, it really is. It's just the saddest story. But I wanted to put it out there because again, these are the kind of, like last year, these were people giving the testimony. So these were whistleblowers, and you could watch them on video. So this is as close as we were coming. Now they're all in this database. But let's hear what the guy from Raytheon had to say too, and then the Greer final moments going out.
It needs to get out to the world. I will start, since we have to be brief. I have already given all pertinent information and supporting documentation to the Senate Intelligence Committee and Arrow. They informed me that all of my information will be recorded for public record and shared with Congress. It is that important. In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The ice cube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster than light vehicles moving throughout the system, we're going to need faster than light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. There's an ELF system at the South Pole Station that when I arrived, I was told it was off, dismantled, and completely defunct. In my work, I will rapidly just tell you, I had to figure out the circuitry for certain other repairs, and I found that this system is in fact completely energized, up and running, and being utilized with the other systems for nefarious purposes as well. The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears. A question of power comes into play for all of these facilities that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on. I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I am doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start
of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved.
So Holly's muted. Hopefully she'll catch that right away. So I guess on that one, before we listen to the Greer outro and we conclude here with Stephen Greer, which he will seep in and out of this stuff, but a lot of things we're going to be talking about. I think one of the takeaways there that I had anyway, that really it kind of boggled my mind is who does have rights on the South Pole or to Antarctica? You know what I'm saying?
Did I hear him correctly that
Which
they
part?
had a machine that could cause earthquakes?
Yes.
I heard that and I'm like, am I hearing that correctly or am I not understanding
I
something?
mean, does that shock you though?
Yes.
Really?
And honestly, to cause an earthquake, yeah, it does.
I mean that we have that level of technology though. Hey, those that have joined us, something
Yes,
with
I
a
mean that's a
bunch of
pretty big
weird letters and sweet as always, Angel Bear
welcome.
3824. How are you?
I mean, I had heard that rumor a while back, but I thought, oh,
Mhm.
how could you cause an earthquake? I don't know. That just seems outrageous to me.
I mean, but really, like, look at CERN. You know,
Well,
I'm concerned about that damn machine too.
yeah.
I mean, so I guess I'm just saying, like, it doesn't shock me that we could, basically, I mean, think of it like, trying to blank on it. What do you call it when fracking? Think of it as fracking. Kind of the same thing, just drilling away at the earth.
Well, yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm sure fracking is at a much lower level, but don't you think they could kick it up and keep learning how to kick it up more and more and more? I do. I think they just know, okay, this is the level where we're already like pissing off the earth, but you
It just
know.
blows my mind.
But I'm just saying, I guess it doesn't shock me that we have something of that magnitude. You know what I mean?
It doesn't shock me that they would think of it, but it shocks me that we actually were able to do it.
Well, I mean, but doesn't that bring about this, but with this Antarctica South Pole stuff? We know that we have a station there. I guess like now I'm imagining, does everybody have a station there? Does nobody have claim to that? Are they not? I know that they are, but are they not affiliate? I don't want to say affiliated, but you know what I mean. Are they not?
Like their own thing.
Yeah, or like and like somehow monitor like, hey, all y'all stay away.
Right.
Or is it more like everybody's got a base down there? I need to look into that because it's
Yeah,
really
that's a good
strange,
question. That's a good question.
because it's like I would imagine that like the US can't just go down there and go, we're gonna have a base, and then if Russia says we are too, they can't go, well, no, you can't. We called it.
Yeah.
Like,
Shotgun.
because it's not, I mean, I guess I should know this. Please, if anybody in the chat knows, please shout it out. We're not afraid to be
What's the
told.
government of Antarctica?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could. The problem with that question is it might give you a quick Google answer, but it might be worth really looking into the history of Antarctica and like its relationship to the rest of the world. I
Yeah.
guess that's what I'm saying. You know what I
We
mean?
will
Like,
look into that and have the answer next week.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Or if like I said, if anybody does in here right now, please shout it out because I would love to know. I mean, I actually, or at least like if anybody has a good Google question on how that would look, like post it in there, like a good Google question I should ask to find out if you understood what I'm looking for. And I think it's pretty clear. I guess I know that we have affiliation because we have a base down there, if not a couple, right? So but does everybody else? I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, are we all just kind of hubbing down there and we all have our like little claims staked? Or are we sharing? Are we, what's going we're gonna have to do those dives into you know Antarctica and all that kind of stuff anyway, because those go crazy too. But let's listen to Mr. Greer here walking us out. I'm going to play part of this first piece, and then we'll play the second, and then Holly and I will come back, and I will walk us out. So,
of hearings on this subject going back many decades. You have Blue Book, Robertson Report, the Gerald Ford hearings, the Condon Report, and etc. These have all been, unfortunately, submarined and corrupted by influences that have prevented the truth of this coming out. We have to be very careful because Eisenhower said only an informed citizenry can prevent the loss of our freedoms and democracy. I would like to acknowledge how important, let's go through these signatures, the 16 members next of the Senate who have written for the Pentagon to pick up its pace and further fund the investigations. But they have to have watchdog, external folks looking at that. That's what the Disclosure Project has to do. The also chairs and co-chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee have written to Arrow with concerns about the feedback. There are people I know who have been through the Arrow office and the SCIF, and they have contacted me explicitly saying that some of their information is not getting back to the members properly. This cannot happen. The Congress has passed a law. The Pentagon and this office must comply, and the people of the United States must insist that they comply with the law that has been passed. Next. We won't have time to go into this in depth. I just want to mention, I want to be extremely careful what I'm about to say, because it will be misconstrued by various folks out there. There are civilizations extremely advanced that are concerned with what we're doing. This station at the South Pole is a much later version of a man that I worked with for a number of years in the 90s who invented the neutrino light detector system on the satellites up in space. He knew then that these were being used, and this was in the 70s, to track, target, and destroy extraterrestrial assets in space and also around the Earth. Now, these civilizations, given their extremely advanced state, had they wished to punch back, they would have. However, they are inordinately peaceful. They are organized in a group, and we need to come forward as a people instead of looking at everything as a military threat and see that there's an opportunity here, and there has to be diplomacy and science and disclosure of the truth in order to avoid a catastrophe. My understanding is the technologies that are in these covert programs have become so advanced that at some point they could be a threat to these other worlds. As such, it puts our entire planet at risk because of the unchecked power and technology of the illegal secret government projects. This is a much graver national security threat than China, Russia, Iran, or anything the news media is currently covering. Next. I want to give you a call to action. All of you listening, the citizens of the world, not just the United States.
okay, this call to action is where he wants you to contact your senators, your congressmen, anybody and everybody, make noise about it. But actually, this is from a year ago. So again, go check out StephenGreer.com. Go check out his website. And from there, you can get to the new DPA archive and hit that up while it's free. And I know that we're a little long on
By
some
the
of the
way,
clip.
it's DrStephenGreer.com.
Dr. Stephen Greer.
Dr. Stephen
Right.
Greer.
Don't spell doctor, just Dr.
Right.
DrStephenGreer.com. But so yeah, so we're now we have the archive though. Go check it out. It is still free right now. And I know that some of these clips ran a little long, but I think they needed to so that we could, because a lot of Stephen Greer is the fact that he's bringing in the whistleblower. So I wanted to have those documented on this episode. We ran a little over. Let's listen to his outro, and then Holly and I will give you ours. So.
Learned from Colonel Philip Corso prior to his death when I was involved, and he came forward, as you all know, wrote the day after Roswell. He had been involved in some of the technology transfer, and he had an experience out at the White Sands missile range back in the 50s. Pretty sure it was 1956, but I don't quote me on that. And he was a colonel. He was involved in these projects. There was an ET craft that came in daytime and came down over the range. He went out there with a couple of his guys. And this craft, it would be three-dimensional and then vanish like a heat wave, like Stephen Digna explained, and then back again. Finally, it stayed. There was an ET that emerged, extraterrestrial biological entity, and he said the ET was communicating, please don't hit us with these radar. Can you get these radar systems out? And was asking, because they were operational, of course, at that time, they were operational at Roswell. And being a brash young, Air Force colonel, and he says, what's in it for me? And the ET says, a new world if you can take it. Now, I was one. Now, I have 12 grandchildren. What kind of world are we going to leave them if we don't fix this problem? Because it involves peace, and we have to work towards contact that is in a peaceful paradigm. We've launched a very controversial project, as I get attacked the most for, the CE5, or Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind contact program, as sort of an experimental, community-based outreach to these civilizations. We have had a number of extraordinary contact experiences. This is sort of a prototype that the French government during the presidency of Sarkozy asked us to demonstrate, and we set an operation in France that was protected, where we did have events take place. I think we have to begin to ask, what can we do as a civilian government where we don't try to militarize and weaponize everything we don't understand? Because here's the problem. If you're a hammer, the whole world's a nail. And so we have to get this disclosed properly so that our brighter scientists, our academics, our political leadership, and our diplomats and the citizens can take the lead on this issue rather than an illegal and clandestine operation that is a threat to national and world security. Thank you for your attention.
So, I think that sums up Stephen pretty well. Again, he will come through on so many different things that Holly and I will be doing and discussing. But I think that between last week and this, without going down every single rabbit hole of his, I think that we'll just collide with him by going down the rabbit holes that we do. But I just wanted to present part of this week as part, the biggest part of him is his role that he takes on, which I guess is Holly can call it something different if she wants, but fairly the utmost authority of this. And he's kind of the human database of all these whistleblowers, who now maybe that's part of why he hasn't had issues, because maybe having this many whistleblowers that he's introduced to each other. And it's almost like the government has to be careful, because the movement goes on without him at this point. But it needs him. So I don't know. Holly, what's your take on Dr. Greer here as we end this up?
I agree. I think that he has done so much for it that I hope that he has enough people that are just under him and close enough to him that, when he is no longer here, that his work does continue. But
I absolutely think it will. And I think there are enough, but I would be concerned at this, like today. I think it still would continue. Give it a couple more years as everybody's coming around to understanding and all this. Give it a couple more years, it'll feel a little better. But right now, he does seem not replaceable, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Because I know it would still go on, but I feel like, who's the kind of new kingpin guy that's going to help us out here?
Right.
I feel like they're already in place, but they just don't have his mind.
No, he has such great authority on all facets of this that he is almost irreplaceable.
However, I think the connections he's made are amazing. So, like, again, introducing everybody to everybody in that community is very powerful too. So maybe that is part, because there has to be something to the fact that he, no offense, government, but this one's on you, that not
Right.
even necessarily ours, but that he hasn't been taken out, or that attempts haven't been made on his life.
Right. And I don't think that there's one person that could just take over for him. Honestly, it would have to be a team of people.
Right. But I think honestly that team is kind of in place. And I think there are a lot of off the grid type people who also would be like, no, we got this, who would very much step up their games and whatnot. But yeah, I do feel like he's still irreplaceable. And I feel like he has a lot of knowledge, and he takes an approach that other people don't. So I don't know really how to describe him. But what I can say is, as the crow flies.
Well, hey, can I add one thing in here before we leave?
Damn it, the
Can
crow
you put
flew.
your crow away for 1 minute?
All right, show crow.
Okay, Antarctica is governed by the Antarctica Treaty System, an international partnership of 54 nations. The treaty was first signed in 1959 by 12 countries. And basically, if you go there, you have to abide by your country's rules. So if you're there from the United States, you abide by the United States rules. If you're there from Russia, you abide by Russia's rules. There is no president. There is no executive person in that treaty. It is a decentralized system of governance with no executive leader.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, that's pretty sketchy.
And it's not a country, it's a continent. And it says that there are around 66 scientific bases, of which about 37 are occupied year-round. The remainder are open during the summer and closed down for the winter. So there are about 4,000 people through the summer months and about 1,000 over winter each year that live there.
Wow.
So
well, I'm glad
you know.
she added that. This is an extra long episode, you guys. We really do try and keep it that 50 minutes to an hour, but
Okay.
if it goes over, it goes. If it goes over, because that was worth it. To be honest, I'm glad I know that. But it is. I got to say, it is sketchy, because like here's an example. Like I know from being out on the cruises, when you're in international waters, that law is extremely sketchy. Basically, there is no law in international waters. However, if you do something, like if I were to murder somebody on a boat, then wherever that boat was commissioned and built, that's the country I will be heard in. So like even if the boat keeps helping out of Florida, right? But it was built in Denmark. If I do something on that boat, I have to go to Denmark to go to court.
Right. Well, I mean, it's happened. People have murdered people on the boats and stuff. So
right. So, but I guess here's my thing: is that like, so with Antarctica, it's like, you run across like one military and you're another military. It's just like, hey man, we don't fight down here. Like, yeah. I'm just saying, there's a lot of things happening on the rest of the globe right now that we wouldn't play well with others down there.
Well, there's no hotels there. It's a very strange place.
Yeah. However, you don't just have to be military. There's scientists there, and there's,
it's mostly
yeah. So, I mean, those are if there's Eskimos living down there, those are the hardcores.
There's no hospital.
Not one.
Nope, and only 11 babies ever have been born.
There's a hospital on every base. That's why.
But there's no hospital in Antarctica.
Well, there's no people.
Well, there's like.
You don't need a hospital if there's no people.
That's true. Yeah, who would work there, I guess, is the question.
Well, no, but who would you service? I mean, the only people that visit it are via cruise ship.
And well, no, because you've got all the scientists that are there. I just told you there's 4,000.
Right. But then they have their little scientist village, and they built their own hospital right there on site.
I guess.
I'm just saying. I think if you go to Antarctica, everything. It's all on you. It's not like it's not even like there's a 7-Eleven. Hospital. There's no 7-Eleven.
Yeah, there's no McDonald's.
Like DoorDash isn't down there.
Yeah. Yeah, on a snowmobile.
All right, guys. So next week, I'm not sure.
What
I'm
are we
not
talking?
sure.
Hey, it's your pick next week. What are we talking about, Steve?
I'm not sure. Because I was, one of the things I was thinking about was like the occult and World War II, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to go that kind of dark yet.
World War II and the occult.
Well, Hitler had a huge
Oh well,
fascination with
yeah.
the occult, and I'm just kind of wondering, and UFO and all that all ties to him. Like, so that I don't know if it's one we want to go down yet, but we will at some point. I don't know. Can it be surprise week?
All right, we'll have surprise week.
Well, no,
We'll come up with something really good.
I gotta say. I mean, there's too many things. I mean, we could.
Look at our Google Doc. How many things do we have on our Google Doc? Like 500.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's never ending.
I know.
You know what, guys? It's just going to have to be a surprise. We ran
Yeah,
over. I
let's switch
wasn't
it up.
prepared.
We're gonna switch it up to
So
something completely different next week, though. Let's do that.
yeah, because it's going to be a show with Holly and I. We just needed to bring the closure to the Dr. Greer piece. Thank you guys for sitting in. But as the crow flies or dies.